Hello, everyone, and thank you very much for joining this stream on both platforms, on YouTube and Rumble. Today is 12th of July. Now it's 11 o'clock in the morning, Moscow time, and I have prepared quite a number of news on some major developments, and hopefully you will find this episode informative and useful. Before I start with the new segment, dear friends, just a reminder that tomorrow I will launch fundraising stream at 11 as I did last Sunday, and I really hope stream will succeed, and that will makes it much easier for me, less stressful for me to carry on with this work for whole next week. That's been said, let me also remind you, dear friends, that yesterday, or that was today actually, early morning, like 1:30 at night, I published short video news update from that I recorded in the central part of Moscow. And if you have not seen it, just check out. Maybe you will find it interesting. I hope so. And I will continue to do reporting in a similar style whenever I'm making second update for our Patreon and Boosty community. I will divide news segment into two parts, and the first part will be published on YouTube and Rumble also, and the rest will be available only on the Patreon and Boosty as exclusive for my channels there. That's been said, dear friends, I have a big surprise for you, but I'm not gonna say nothing yet. Let's see how they goes, and let's start a new segment on that. Well, first, this report, dear friends, that overnight, early hours of this morning, Russian air defense systems on duty, according to RIA Novosti, intercepted 33 Ukrainian drones that were launched with assistance of NATO, of course, to strike deep into Russian territory. 16 drones were intercepted over the Bryansk region, 5 over the Black Sea, 4 drones over Crimea, 3 over Rostov region, southern Russia, 2 over Kursk region, 1 each over the Krasnodar territory, the Voronezh region, and the waters of the Azov Sea. No reports at this point about casualties as a result of this particular drone raid last night, or about more or less significant damage. If any update on that, of course, I will share additional information during the day on my Telegram and Twitter X page and in next update. But when it comes to strikes that Kiev regime is conducting against Russia, against Russian civilians, I spoke about situation in Kherson region yesterday in that second update. Unfortunately, civilians were trapped after Ukrainian airstrike hit apartment block, according to local governor. And on your screen right now, you can see, dear friends, this apartment block that basically collapsed after 2 bombs hit this building, and dozens of civilians, according to Saldo governor, dozens of residents were trapped in rubble, and the Kiev regime's forces were not allowing Russian rescue teams to conduct their search and rescue operations to free their trapped civilians. This happened in Oleshki settlement, by the way, which is right next to, on the bank of the Dnieper River. Let me show you, dear friends. This is Oleshki settlement, and as you can see, it's located on the bank of the Dnieper River, and on the opposite side is Kherson. And the Kiev regime's troops were with the FPV drones were targeting emergency personnel, emergency services, whenever they were trying to reach that building to rescue civilians. Clear war crime on part of Kiev regime. There can be no any other explanation of this horrible action that they committed. Let's go through this news, sir. Nevertheless, Ukrainian airstrike has destroyed a 5-story residential building in the Russian town of Oleshki in the Kherson region. trapping an unknown number of civilians under the rubble, according to local authorities. Yet again, later on, there was reports about dozens of civilians being trapped. The strike occurred on Friday around 7 kilometers from the Dnieper River, which divides Russian and Ukrainian military personnel. At this point, Kherson region governor Vladimir Saldo said that building collapsed after being hit by 2 bombs. The enemy has hit a residential building in Aleshki. In an airstrike, Saldo told Russian news agencies the building has collapsed. Civilians are trapped under the rubble. Saldo alleged that Ukrainian forces were using drones to hinder rescue efforts, targeting emergency crews attempting to reach the site. Dozens of people are trapped under the rubble, he wrote in a statement on Telegram. And dear friends, this morning I was searching for update on this information. I'm quite sure emergency services, nevertheless, despite the risks, were attempting to rescue people, and the number of people most likely were rescued, but possibly not all, because yet again, main Russian media outlets did not really share much update on these developments. Of course, if any additional information during the day, I will share that information on my Telegram and Twitter X page in next update. TASS news agency is also reporting, based on Russian Defense Ministry's update, that settlement Zeleная Dolina is liberated under full Russian control now. Success of Russian armed forces. Also, TASS news agency is reporting that according to Russian military expert Andrei Marochko, Russian armed forces are almost completely control now Chisov Yar. Let's go through this news for some little detail. Russian servicemen advanced in Chisov Yar of the Donetsk People's Republic last week. As a military expert, Andrei Marochko told us Russian fighters control almost all of Chisov Yar, and only the district of the city, Shevchenko district remains under the control of Ukrainian armed forces. And there were several times reports about fierce fighting in Shevchenko district area. And yes, it is unfortunate that this district is not yet fully liberated, but nevertheless, it is also a possibility that Russian troops are using this part of the city as a sort of a trap, so that while doing so, while halting advances in a direction, basically Russian troops are forcing Kiev regime to send reinforcement time and time again, right? And these reinforcements then being neutralized, right? So it is a possibility, as Bakhmut was a trap for Kiev regime's forces, that Chisov Yar is serving somewhat similar purpose, and that's why I guess this town has not been completely liberated for quite a while. I mean, battle for Chisov Yar is continuing for so many months now, isn't it? TASS news agency is also reporting, based on Marochko, Andrei Marochko, that Yunakovka settlement in the Sumi region has moved into a gray zone. Let me show you this settlement, dear friends. There was also fierce fighting over this settlement in last number of weeks. This is Yunakovka settlement, and Russian troops are controlling northern eastern parts of this village. Rest of the territory is in a gray zone, and Marochko basically is indicating that because there is no complete Russian control over their settlement, that this village is in a gray zone. Important village right now, strategical pointer, I will say, and most likely because it took quite a time for Russian troops to establish control over the Yunakovka, Russian offensive was kind of halted in other areas of the northern part of Sumi region, where creation of the buffer zone has begun about like 2 months ago, right? And quite a number of settlements have been liberated by Russian forces, but now there is this relatively large settlement, Yunakovka, which was used as a logistical hub, as a stronghold by Kiev regime's forces. And once this settlement is completely cleared from enemy forces, I think Russian troops will resume offensive in Sumi region to reach this massive forestry that is located basically on northeastern side of Sumi city itself. So soon, by the way, maybe even before end of next week, most likely we will see further advances of the Russian armed forces in the northern part of Sumi region and significant advances. And while map is open, let me also give you an update that Russian armed forces, according to number of reports, established control of the settlement of Grushevskoye, this one here, and are getting closer and closer to the Dnipropetrovsk region. On this sector also, reports are that Novokhatskaya settlement is in a gray zone now, or that means disputed between the sides. And once Russian troops will finalize clearing operation in this settlement, then, well, relatively big settlement, Zelyony Gai, is going to be next for sure, which is located right on the border with the Dnipropetrovsk region. Battle for the settlement probably will take some time because there is issues with the terrain, difficult terrain from few directions, and also Ivanovka settlement in the Dnipropetrovsk region is located right on top of Zelyony Gai. Ivanovka, as I said, is the Dnipropetrovsk region, and Zelyony Gai is DPR, right? So therefore, Kiev regime will have an opportunity to send more reinforcements towards Zelyony Gai, and therefore this fight for the settlement might take relatively long. Although obviously it is a possibility always that Russian troops will conduct flanking maneuvers, and there may be Russian troops will first enter Ivanovka settlement to distract logistic lines of the Kiev regime, and then Russian troops will begin liberating Zelyony Gai. Theoretically speaking, that's a possibility also, although I'm not military expert and take my analysis of the military developments there with a pinch of salt. Never pretended to be military expert, dear friends. So that's being said, dear friends, let's continue with some more news. According to TASS news agency, and I reported about it yesterday in that second update, Russian Defense Minister Andrei Belousov inspected the progress of the combat mission by Dnipro units and hear the reports from local commanders about situation on this direction. And whenever high-ranking Russian officials, see the defense minister or Belousov or head of general staff Gerasimov are visiting certain directions on line of contact, usually in few weeks time we are seeing significant activization of the Russian troops in that area, and maybe we should expect activization of the Russian operations in Kherson, Zaporozhye directions too. Dnipro group of forces are operating on both directions. Most likely this is going to be case. Also, dear friends, Russian militaries continue to conduct long-range precise strikes on so-called recruitment offices or recruitment centers of the Kiev regime. And let me give you a video. This is Odessa, by the way, Odessa area. Once again, and no more recruitment center for Western-backed terrorist regime in that part of the region. Significant intensification of the Russian strikes on so-called PCK or these recruitment centers. And as I said many times before, dear friends, local people are quite happy about these strikes because they hate these so-called recruitment officers. They just hate them, right? And there are so many videos, by the way, when people are tackling actually, and they're even fighting these so-called recruitment officers when they are trying to kidnap residents of Ukraine from the streets, right? And quite often civilians are successful, to force these recruitment officers to back off. But unfortunately, not always. And well, I think this operation of Russian armed forces to target recruitment offices definitely makes sense, because these so-called recruitment officers gonna think more before they will go for a raid to kidnap some more more people. Let's continue, dear friends, and also let me report that during the night, Russian troops conducted a relatively large-scale drone and missile strikes on military and logistical infrastructure of the Kiev regime, and this time, according to reports that I see, main direction of these drone and missile strikes was Lvov city, also Lutsk and Chernovtsi. All three directions are in the western Ukraine. And let me show you this video, by the way, of one of the such strikes in Chernovtsi area. So, short video of a missile strike on military and logistical infrastructure of the Kiev regime. And later on today, probably we will receive an update from Russian Defense Ministry what exactly was targeted. According to some reports, more than 500 drones were used by Russian forces and about 30 long-range cruiser missiles. But yet again, this is preliminary data. Let's wait what Russian Defense Ministry has to say about it. Clearly, scale of Russian drone and missile strikes are becoming not just large, but extremely large, right? Some double XL drone and missile strikes, triple XL, I don't know. And for a reason, after all, Western media outlets, so-called media outlets, are publishing nowadays articles that, at approximately at autumn time, Russian armed forces will be in a position to launch about 1,000 or more than 1,000 drones and missiles simultaneously to attack our military and logistical infrastructure of the Kiev regime, right? Which is definitely going to be massive. Kiev regime's air defense systems already are overwhelmed, and they barely are managing to deal with these incoming aerial targets. And can you imagine what will happen if Russia is launching 1,000 drones and missiles? And that's quite something, isn't it? We will see. Already, by the way, 500 drones, 700 drones. Also, it's not a joke, by the way. It's a serious developments. And clearly, Russian armed forces, I don't know what is happening. I don't really have a strong opinion on the matter, but it seems to me that Russian troops kind of shifted focus on these long-range strikes. Maybe, just maybe, we are observing, by the way, preparations for potential large-scale Russian offensive. Yet again, I'm no military expert. I cannot know, obviously, but this significant increase in scale of Russian drone and missile strikes, can be the indicator that, and somewhat operational pause that we are observing on line of contact may be, seen as an indicator that something big is in preparations, something big is about to happen. And if this reading of the picture is correct, then we will find out about it in about like 2 or 3 weeks time. Let's see. And dear friends, before I continue, and there is a lot of news left to report about on some important developments, let me notice, if I may, that this channel, my channels, by the way, only exist as long as I have your support, as long as this project, this independent media project, has your support. And if you like what you see, what you hear in my programs, so if you want to see further development of this project, please consider to support my work. You can do it through several means. You can donate through PayPal or Boosty platforms. You can donate through crypto. During the live streams, you can use super chat feature on Rumble, or also become a premium subscriber on Rumble. You can also give premium subscription to other members of the community, and you can subscribe to my Patreon and Boosty pages, by the way. Everything counts. All support counts, of course. All the links are on this video in description box and in the pinned comment. And dear friends, I can see right now 183 people are watching this stream on YouTube. And if you have an account on Rumble, and if you can to switch during the live streams to Rumble, that will be helpful also, because yet again, channel is monetized there and will never be monetized on YouTube, right? So these views on YouTube don't really make much change. It just makes me happier. When I see more user, it just makes me happier. It means I managed to reach wider audience, right? And for that purpose, dear friends, if you can, please share information about my channel with your friends, share links. That is a help too, obviously. And now let's continue with some more news. And well, Lavrov, by the way, Sergei Lavrov is in North Korea right now. And news is that Lavrov commented on the statements from the Western leaders about creation of corpus, expeditionary sort of a corpus to protect Ukraine. And he commented on that. Russia does not take seriously fantasies about creating a corps of multinational forces to protect Ukraine. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov stated, "We are not particularly interested in this, but they should they shout about it loudly, so we cannot ignore it. But we do not take seriously the various fantasies promoted by those who want to shine on the international stage," he said. And he was commenting basically on statements of Macron, president of France, and I guess Tamar is on board with him, that France and UK will build some 50,000 strong expeditionary corps. Okay. Yesterday I commented on that, and I said that, well, Kiev regime is losing 50,000 troops almost on monthly basis, right? And if you take 50,000 troops of Kiev regime and that French UK 50,000 strong corpus, you think which one is more capable? Don't tell me that French British corps will be more capable. Of course not, man. Half of them will probably die by heart attack if they suddenly end up on a zero line, because they have no idea what that feels like. They just have no idea what high intensity war is whatsoever, right? And I can understand the irony and sarcasm of Lavrov, because he knows perfectly well that Russian armed forces are quite effectively neutralizing most capable military force in Europe, which is Kiev regime's forces, right? And all this show that Macron and Starmer and some other so-called leaders in Europe are putting up don't really impresses Russia. Let's say it this way. Also, dear friends, when it comes to Lavrov, as you know, he had a meeting with Marco Rubio a few days ago, and after that meeting in Kuala Lumpur on the sideline of ASEAN summit, and after that meeting, news began circulating on the internet, on pages of media, that Lavrov transferred to Rubio some new approaches from Russian side in regards to resolution of the Ukrainian crisis. And Kremlin was asked about it, spokesman of the Russian president, and let's see what he has to say on that matter. So Kremlin refuses to comment on essence of the Russia's recent proposals to the US on Ukraine. Due to obvious reasons, Moscow will not reveal the essence of new proposals on the Ukrainian conflict settlement submitted to US Secretary of State Marco Rubio by Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. Russian presidential spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said on Friday. And so even though he did not say much, right? Fact that he acknowledged that some new initiatives were transferred to Rubio is on its own interesting, right? This acknowledgement. And question is what these new initiatives are. It is interesting, especially because Lavrov, by the way, very same Lavrov, while talking to a journalist, stated that basically during the conversation with Marco Rubio, he reiterated position of the Russian president that is well known for a very, very long time, right? So if maybe Lavrov just explained in detail to Rubio certain aspects of the Russian vision, and therefore Rubio sees this explanation as something new, some new proposal, because maybe he did not really pay much attention to details, to nuances, and he counted this explanation as something new. Maybe, I don't know. But Lavrov said that his proposal, whatever they talked about, was based on statements of Russian president in regards to resolution of the Ukrainian crisis. And key points there are, of course, one of the key points is to address root causes of the crisis. So nothing has changed in this regard. And this information can also deserve some attention because on Monday, as we all know, according to reports from US media, US President Trump plans to make some important statements about Russia. So maybe this detailed explanation by Russian side to American side to Rubio and his delegation, certain nuances in terms of Russian position. Maybe this will influence somewhat on the position of Washington. Maybe, or maybe not. We don't know. Let's wait what kind of statements Donald Trump will make on Monday. As I said yesterday, by the way, during the second news update, I'm unfortunately not really optimistic. Even though I want to be optimistic, by the way, I want to see the escalation. I want US to pull out from this proxy war. That will bring end to the conflict much faster. But we have to be realists, isn't it? And therefore, I have some doubts that Trump and his administration will make right choices. I just doubt that. Let's see. Meanwhile, head of Western-backed terrorist regime in Kiev, Zelensky stated that US arms supplies have resumed. And yet again, dear friends, as I said earlier, I don't even believe that any arms deliveries were stopped. Information about this topic starts circulating on internet the day before US president called the Russian president, right? It was last week, isn't it? Exactly the day before. I think it was a deception attempt of Trump and his administration to conduct this deception operation. They were probably thinking that if we will spread these rumors, then maybe Trump will have some leverage during the conversation with the Russian president. It did not work. And since then, Trump stated, I don't know, on several occasions how unhappy he is with the talk, with outcome of with the conversation with the Russian president. Okay, I mean, we get that, but no one really cares. I mean, Russian president has a very important job, and among his duties, there is definitely nothing about making Trump happy, right? So I think it was deception, by the way. I think it was deception from beginning to the end, and now this deception operation that failed clearly is finalized. Zelensky himself is saying that, well, US arms supplies resumed. Okay. Unfortunate, by the way. It is unfortunate that the US is still engaged in this proxy war against Russia. One may argue that during the Biden's administration, globalists were in control of US and they were using US as an enforcer, right? As they were doing with US for decades and decades before. But now, at least there was a idea that new administration is not really asset of the globalists, right? New administration is supposed to be America first force. And that's why there was a hope among many people that maybe Washington will begin distancing itself from all sorts of Sikh ideologies and extremist policies of the globalists, including in regards to this proxy war against Russia that globalists are waging. But until now, we don't really see any concrete steps from Washington in this direction to pull out US from this proxy war. There was some talks, some statements, different statements, but nothing was done really, which is unfortunate. And it is also likely that we will see further engagement, further deepening of the involvement of the US in this proxy war, because seems like that's the direction that White House is heading. But nevertheless, let's continue with this news. RIA Novosti is reporting that Rubio urges NATO countries to transfer weapons from their stockpiles to Ukraine. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio said Washington is calling on the NATO countries to transfer American weapon systems located in Europe to Ukraine and then replenish their stockpile by purchasing them from the US. Ultimately, we have quote from him, ultimately, some of the systems that Ukraine needs are not produced in Europe. They will have to be purchased from the United States, Rubio said after meeting with Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi in Kuala Lumpur on the sidelines of ASEAN events. Yeah, I mean, US seems like Washington is very much happy if European countries will continue this proxy war against Russia. They will just have to buy weapons from US. That's all. Is that indicates that US is about de-escalation, this approach? No. It's that Washington wants to be more focused on Indo-Pacifics, let's say, and same time they want this proxy war to continue against Russia, and they are basically calling Europeans to continue this proxy war, but to buy weapons in US, so that US, I guess, in their minds, in White House, in Washington, they will benefit in this case better than if this conflict suddenly ends. Maybe that's their calculus. I don't know. It is difficult to understand what these people are really thinking, because they never really demonstrated that they are intellectuals, right? They are not. So therefore, only primitive elements, primitive individuals probably understand what the hell is going on in Trump's head, in Rubio's head, and in heads of these morons, by the way, that being picked and put in a position of power or decision making by deep state, by Israeli lobby, globalists, and so on. Nevertheless, while Washington is calling European capitals to transfer their weapons from their military stockpiles to Kiev regime and then to purchase more weapons from US, European capitals, at least some of them, are doing exactly the opposite. They are calling US to continue transferring weapons to Kiev regime. And for example, Merz, German Chancellor, is doing exactly that. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz has urged US President Donald Trump to join the EU in its drive to supply weapons to Ukraine, including more missile defense systems. And Yet again, dear friends, do you understand what the hell is going on between these parties? They are calling each other to send more weapons. I mean, I don't know. It's insane, right? And that one should also keep in mind that they don't really have much weapons left. They've been quite effectively demilitarized, isn't it? There is no much air defense systems left in Europe, Patriots, Iris-Ts, or others, right? There are not that many armored personnel carriers left, or infantry fighting vehicles left, or armored carriers, or MRAPs, right? Artillery systems, by the way. Tens of thousands of military equipment that Kiev regime received from NATO are already being destroyed by Russian forces. And stockpiles of NATO member states, even US stockpiles, in number of directions are almost empty. They cannot provide no more weapons. Maybe yes, US will be able to scrap some 100 Bradleys somewhere, right? Bradley infantry fighting vehicles and 100 more Striker infantry fighting vehicles. Maybe Germany will send a dozen or 2 dozen of tanks, another few dozen of infantry fighting vehicles, and so on. Maybe UK will, take some weapons from British Armed Forces and transfer that. Italy can do it, but all these weapons, by the way, I mean, all these hundreds of infantry fighting vehicles and stuff will be destroyed in a month's time. And what next? What next? That's the question, man. Longer this conflict continues, by the way, more desperate these psychopaths gonna become in the collective West, that are in charge of collective West, because they will face realization that they lost. They would not be able to avoid facing the truth, right? When Merz will ask his generals, can we send more tanks? And well, he will receive no, because we don't have any left. And when he will receive same answer about infantry fighting vehicles and MRAPs and so on, well, eventually he will be forced to face the reality and acknowledge that yes, they don't really can do much no more, right? And they are very close to that point. Same can be said about France and and UK, and that's why, by the way, I think we are getting very close to potential next phase of escalation, which is going to be attempt by the collective West to transform Kiev regime into a nuclear armed regime. I spoke about these risks many times before, and I'm afraid we are getting closer and closer to that point, because yet again, NATO is being quite effectively demilitarized by Russian armed forces. Let's continue with some more news, and somewhat interesting article was published on Financial Times. I give you some details on that. Ukraine's Western allies still believe that Donald Trump is inclined to view Vladimir Putin as their main negotiating partner for the future settlement of the conflict, while Zelensky is seen as the main obstacle to reaching a peace agreement. One of their sources also noted that there has been some over-excitement in recent days over Trump's change in the tone, but so far there is no signs that this has translated into any large-scale action. Yet again, let's wait. I mean, on Monday, Trump is going to make some statements, isn't it? And he may go completely crazy, completely nuts in his statements and attack Russia, which will be unfortunate, but yet again, that's to be expected, isn't it? I don't think Trump will come out and say that, you know what, US was used by globalists because there was a globalist assets in the charge during the Biden's administration, but this war is not in interest of US citizens, and therefore I'm removing US from this proxy war. I don't think he will say that, right? He will say exactly the opposite, that, Washington will stay with Zelensky as long as it takes, and that kind of crap that we have heard many times before. either from Washington or from London, Paris, Berlin, and other Western capitals. But meanwhile, by the way, Trump is facing some significant challenges inside the US itself, because reports are that FBI chief is demanding Attorney General's resignation over Epstein case. So FBI Director Kesh Patel wants the head of the Justice Department and the country's Attorney General, Pam Bondi, to resign, aimed their disagreements over the case of Jeffrey Epstein. Patel also does not rule out leaving his post following his deputy, Dan Bongino. The Daily Wire reports, citing a source in the US Justice Department. Daily Wire is Ben Shapiro's project, isn't it? I don't trust either Ben Shapiro or Daily Wire, but sometimes they might report about something real. This might be that case, I don't know. Earlier, Semaphore reported, citing sources, that FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino might resign due to disagreement with the Bondi, and has a dissatisfaction with the fact that the Justice Department declared the case effectively closed and did not release documents related to investigation. So this topic is not closed yet, dear friends. Topic of Epstein files definitely is not closed. And I don't know about Kesh Patel. I don't see him as a honest person, decent person. I just don't see him to be that kind of guy. But Dan Bongino, by the way, according to also, reports that I read about that individual on internet, Dan Bongino is a bit different. And many people are thinking that Dan Bongino probably is facing serious psychological struggle right now, because he's opposing his own principles and values, right, that he's known for, while playing along with this nonsense, with this cover-up that Washington come up with in regards to Epstein files. And Dan Bongino is resigning, according to reports in number of media, first of all, alternative media outlets, and maybe Kesh Patel will follow, because he also used to be a quite respected person, by the way, when it comes to conservative voices, right? Before he was appointed as director of the FBI. But then I don't know, what happened to him, but I saw a couple of his interviews, and he did not left impression that he is an honest guy. So I don't know about him, but Dan Bongino is clearly, you can see it on his face, by the way, during his interviews, that he's struggling. He is in pain because he's bashing himself, basically, right? He's discrediting himself while keeping quiet. And he might struggle with that. And if he will resign, he have to be extremely careful in terms of his security. He is an expert in security matters, I know, but he has to be extremely careful, because some very influential groups might see him as a risk, and some action could be taken against him. So let's see, by the way, and this topic is so not over yet, topic of Epstein files, that this might actually bring down Trump himself. I can see clearly certain scenarios based on which Trump might actually be forced to resign in connection with this topic of Epstein files. And if one of those scenarios will get realized, then, well, Vice President J.D. Vance better get prepared to lead the country. Share your take, dear friends, what you think about it. And when it comes to Kesh Patel, by the way, well, in the US especially, but in the world in general, questions being raised about Kesh Patel, his integrity, especially because of the questions in regards to his girlfriend, who might be asset of Israeli secret services, right? And many videos being published with some level of investigation on this matter. And Well, people are asking questions that, well, Patel, who is 45 and is dating Alexis Wilkins, who is 90 years younger, 26-year-old, right? This girlfriend of the Patel. So, I mean, it's all legal. Everything is legal there. Just, significant difference in age, but nevertheless, okay. But question is that this Wilkins, this female that you see on your screen right now, I don't know if you see the video, but you can Google it, by the way. So this Alexis Wilkins currently working for PragerU as a non-profit media group run by Marissa Strait. And this Marissa Strait, by the way, is a former Israeli military intelligence officer. So, and by the way, when it comes to intelligence, there are no such understanding there, a former intelligence officer. It's a one-way direction there. Once you get in, you never get out, right? Only with your legs front, which means only if you're dead. So there is no such a thing as former intelligence officer, by the way. It's nonsense, right? So many people are raising questions about Patel's integrity because maybe he's been influenced by this Alexis Wilkins, who might be also Mossad operative. Is it possible? Yes, possible. But, let's see, by the way. As time goes by, more and more details going to come up. More and more details, by the way, because people are not willing to shut up. People are not willing to ignore crimes that were committed by so-called elites in US. And people are very angry. So answers are demanded, and there will be some answers. And by the way, as I said, I clearly see certain scenarios that can actually bring down Trump himself and open their door for J.D. Vance to lead the country. US, that is. Anyways, let's continue with some more news. And RT is reporting that France opens criminal case against Musk's ex. So France has opened a criminal investigation into whether algorithms on Elon Musk's platform were used to interfere in domestic politics. The probe's terms from two complaints filed in January. Paris prosecutor Laure Becot said on Friday, without naming Musk directly, she stated that investigators will examine the company and its executives for allegedly manipulating algorithms for purposes of foreign interference. And by the way, France is becoming very tough, isn't it, on freedom of speech. Head of founder and CEO of Telegram was arrested by French authorities. Now they are targeting Elon Musk and Twitter X. I mean, they clearly are not happy, whenever there is some platforms that they cannot have full control over. That's what is happening, isn't it? That's what is happening because I don't think French investigators really have a case in their hands, right? What they're gonna do that, Musk commented about some politicians in France. He has a right to comment on it, right? Is that interference in the French internal politics? In that case, no one should comment anything in this world, right, about any topic. Is that the way to go forward? I don't think so. So they, French authorities clearly have no case in their hands, but they want to gain some leverage over the Twitter X, I believe, and that's why they are opening criminal case. And Musk should stay away from France, by the way, or French overseas territories, because he might well be, arrested, and then he might experience something even worse than Pavel Durov experienced, founder and CEO of Telegram, that was kept in jail in France for several weeks that was, isn't it? At least several months, actually. Now, correct me on that, dear friends, if you remember how long Pavel Durov was in custody there in France, but for quite a while, not for years, of course, but at least a couple of weeks he spent in jail, for sure. Meanwhile, dear friends, as I already mentioned, Lavrov is in DPRK in North Korea. So Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has arrived in DPRK on a working visit. The minister's plane landed at Wonsan airport, where a coastal tourist zone opened on July 1st, as correspondent reports. According to official representative of the Russian diplomatic department, Maria Zakharova, in Wonsan, Lavrov will hold talks with his counterpart from DPRK, Choi Son. He, as a part of the second round of strategic dialogue at the level of the foreign ministers of two countries. Lavrov will stay in the Republic until July 13 and then head to China to take part in a meeting of their heads of their SCO foreign ministers. SCO is, I believe, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, right? Partner organization to the BRICS, important organization, of course. And well, it is interesting. It is interesting news, by the way, I believe, because almost every other week, some high-ranking Russian official is in North Korea nowadays, and clearly relationships between the countries are reaching some unprecedented levels, right? North Korea is becoming more and more open for Russia. I think North Korea will become more and more open for Russian investments. This resort, by the way, that is mentioned in this news update, Wonsan resort, this coastal tourist zone, was opened recently, and I would not be surprised if one day we will find out that this resort was opened with Russian investments. It's open for Russian citizens too, by the way, only for Russian citizens and domestic population, right? And I think there is a high chance that North Korea will open its economy more and more to Russian investments. And by the way, if that is going to be the case, I mean, 10, 15, 20 years, and North Korea would not be recognizable. North Korea just would not be recognizable. That's how much it's going to change. Question is about political system in North Korea. Would they be ready to undergo some adaptation, right? To succeed, to let North Korea succeed in its development. That's a different topic. I don't know if North Korean political leadership will manage to do so, but if they will manage to adapt, or if system will manage to adapt, if economy is open for Russian investments, North Korea gonna undergo some tremendous changes in a positive way, because tens of billions of dollars gonna flow in North Korean economy from Russia. And give it 10, 15 years, in that case, you would not recognize, by the way, that country, right? Also interesting news that official Delhi is discussing their purchase of fifth-generation fighters, giving preference to Russian Su-57 due to partners' reliability and exclusive conditions. Indian Defense Minister Rajesh Kumar Singh announced negotiations on the purchase of fifth-generation fighters abroad. Российская Gazeta reports all through their country of manufacturer has not been named. Experts consider the Russian Su-57 to be their favorite. Military Watch magazine quotes former Indian Air Force Marshal Anil Chopra as saying the United States tends to exert pressure and abandon its allies when their interests diverge. Excuse me. The reason for abandoning the F-35 was Washington's demand to reduce cooperation with Russia, which is unacceptable for India. So by the way, former Indian Air Force Marshal is saying that Well, F-35 has been dropped, by the way. US fifth gen fighter jet was dropped, and therefore India not going to buy fifth gen fighter jet from China, by the way. That's for sure, and therefore only Russia is left. Only Russian Su-57 is left when it comes to fifth gen fighter jets that are actually operational and on the market, right? And it does make sense, by the way, because Russia and India are cooperating in political, cultural, military fields for decades and decades and decades, and there is a great record, right? There was some issues also time to time in relationships. It happens between any two countries, right? At some point, you might face some issues, some disagreements, but you are overcoming these disagreements and continuing cooperation. And that's what is happening in regards to Russia and India too. And yet again, it does make great deal of sense if India will buy Russian Su-57s. It will be, it will make it easier to integrate these systems, these platforms, into India's air defense and India's air force, right? Where, yet again, dominant positions are held by Russian weapon systems, including Su-30 fighter jets, S-400 air defense systems, and so on, right? In case of the Su-57, which is also interesting, Indian side received the unique conditions from Russia, the transfer of their software source code and the organization of the aircraft assembly in India. So India will build these planes on license from Russia and with Russian assistance, but India will build these planes on their own, and obviously they will gain certain knowledge while doing so that will help New Delhi to, in relatively short time, build their absolutely domestically designed fifth gen fighter jet, which is already been approved as a project, right? And even some funds have been allocated for India's military industrial complex to begin works on development of this fully domestically engineered and built fifth gen fighter. But in between, meanwhile, Su-57 will definitely do the job, for sure. But yet again, this is all preliminary information, no official statements being made until now, at least. Also, dear friends, when it comes to international affairs, in Brazil, protesters torched Donald Trump's figure, and they built. Let me show you a video about it. They created some kind of avatar of Donald Trump and burned it down. They are not happy. They are not happy in Brazil. They are not happy with the U.S. administration. Yeah, that's what is happening, by the way. That's the reaction in Brazil on threats from White House that they're going to impose 50% tariffs on all goods from Brazil that is imported by US. And Lula da Silva, president of Brazil, already reacted on that and promised retaliation. And well, Brazil is a BRICS member state, by the way, and I don't think US really wants to mess with the BRICS this much because they're gonna lose. US not gonna succeed while messing around BRICS, man. It's just not happening, right? And so better Trump reconsider his stance when it comes to this trade war that he initiated or whatever forces are behind him, because this will harm US tremendously. But yes, people in US are not happy, by the way. Demonstration reported by AP reflects a growing anger across Latin America at US protectionism cloaked in their language of free trade. And so, yes, people see double standards, by the way. People see double standards on part of Washington, and even US allies are not happy, by the way, right? with all this trade war that US is initiating, or US political class, let's say, right? Otherwise, US citizens, ordinary citizens, but by the way, they don't initiate nothing. They don't want no trade wars. They don't want no military conflicts. They just want to live in peace, right? And be happy, as all of us do, by the way, all over the world, right? But political class in US is something different, of course, and they are all about escalating with everyone, and they are losing Latin America, by the way. They are forcing countries to accelerate their movement towards BRICS, basically, and to force them, and the US is forcing countries worldwide to basically distance themselves from the Washington. Is that helpful for US in any way, shape, or form? I don't think so, but tell this to, officials there in Washington. Also interesting news from RT, that according to JP Morgan CEO, Europe is losing, and losing big time. Western Europe is losing the economic competition with its main rivals, China and US, and is struggling with the shortage of globally competitive companies. JP Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon has stated since 2022, when the EU imposed sweeping sanctions on Russian energy over the Ukrainian conflict, growth across the bloc has stagnated. Germany, once its economic powerhouse, is now experiencing its third year of economic downfall. And by the way, France and UK are not in any better position in that matter. Moscow has argued that EU restrictions are self-defeating, causing surging in energy prices and weakening the bloc's economy, which is true, factual. Dimon, CEO of one of the world's largest banks, cautioned EU leaders at the event in Dublin, hosted by their Irish Foreign Ministry on Thursday, that Europe has lost its competitive edge compared to the US and is facing a growing crisis in economic competitiveness. You are losing, he said. Europe has gone from 90% of US GDP to 65% over the 10 or 15 years. Tremendous decline, isn't it? We've got the huge, strong market, and our companies are big and successful, have huge kinds of scale that are global. You have that, but less and less. The JP Morgan boss has repeatedly expressed concern about the state of European economies. Earlier this year, Dimon told Financial Times that Europe needed to do more to remain competitive, noting that GDP per person had dropped from around 70% of America's to 50%, which he deemed not sustainable. Dimon warning comes as European NATO members say they need to ramp up their military budgets to deter an alleged threat from Russia. Yes, I mean, while all the experts, by the way, are warning EU leadership, EU member states leadership, that with the current policies, they will harm tremendously their own economies. Seems like bureaucracy in Europe is refusing to listen to these voices of the experts, and therefore, I was correct when I was saying, by the way, and when I'm saying, and will continue to say, that Europe is doomed. Unfortunately, Europe is doomed because I don't see potential there that a majority of the people would wake up and reclaim control over their countries and over their own destinies. And therefore, this globalist, so-called globalist, going to be in charge there for upcoming, I don't know, decades and decades and decades, right? And that will be enough. That will be enough to put EU into a very dark place. And in 20, 30 years' time, by the way, I mean, some of us may be around. Hopefully, all of us will be around in 30 years. But many of us are quite old, isn't it? I mean, I'm not sure if I'll be around in 30 years' time. But nevertheless, whoever from us will be around in 30 years' time, they can remember my words when I was saying that, yes, Europe, when I'm saying now that, Europe in 20, 30 years will become either loosely relevant, part of the Eurasian continent, or completely irrelevant. That's the option that modern Europe has, by the way. Due to crazy politicians, crazy so-called elites, and their policies. And while this is happening, by the way, while Europe is destroying itself from within, severing ties with Russia and escalating with Russia, Moscow is, further intensifying business with the rest of the world, and obviously biggest trade partner for Russia is China. And we have this report that Gazprom and CMPC, Russian Gazprom and Chinese CMPC, giant energy companies, discuss prospective Russian gas supply projects to China. Gazprom CEO Alexei Miller and the CMPC chairman Dai Holanger discussed the prospective Russian gas supply projects to China during a working meeting in Beijing, according to a statement from the Russian holding. The Far Eastern Route project is progressing according to schedule. In June 2025, Gazprom, CMPC, and Pipe China signed agreement governing cooperation during the commissioning and future operation of the cross-border section of the gas pipeline across the Ussuri River. The start of deliveries is scheduled for 2027. Special attention during the talks between Alexei Miller and Dai Holinger was given to future gas supply projects to China, taking into account the needs of the rapidly growing Chinese economy, the statement said. Gazprom noted that in the long term, gas demand in China is expected to increase significantly, according to forecasts from several Chinese research agencies. Gas consumption in the country will rise to 600 to 650 billion cubic meters by 2035-2040. Our mutually beneficial cooperation with our Chinese partners is based on a realistic understanding of their present and the future of the global energy market. Reliable traditional energy sources will remain in demand for a long time. The cleanest and most efficient of this is natural gas. I am confident that in the coming decades, natural gas will make a significant contribution to achieving China's environmental and economic goals. Miller, head of Russian Gazprom, stated, as quoted in a statement, and good, by the way. What can I say? Recent escalation in the Middle East, this 12-day war between Israel and Iran, also U.S. strikes on Iran, definitely, I think most likely scared the Chinese political, economical leadership, financial leadership, because they see how fragile their energy supply lines are. And probably they also understand that globalists would love to provoke regional war in the Middle East to cut off China from Middle Eastern energy sources. They should see, by the way, if I see these risks, well, Chinese think tanks should also see it, right? And lecture or provide some consultation to their leadership there. There is a high risk that globalists will continue their attempt to destabilize Middle East, to shut down navigation to provoke a regional war, basically, and shut down navigation in the Persian Gulf and the Hormuz Strait, from which China on daily basis buys, for example, like 10 to 12 million barrels of oil. And there are also huge volumes of gas, right? And by the way, therefore, if you remember, I said at the time of that 12-day war between Israel and Iran that most likely China will activate its policies in regards to energy companies with Russia, and that's exactly what is happening. That's exactly what is happening. I think soon we will receive information that sides managed to agree on several projects to finalize, basically work on several projects, including Power of Siberia 2 pipeline, because China needs energy, by the way. Of course, both countries, Russia and China, want to keep balance. We don't want China to be extremely dependent on Russian energy, right? But same time, as if there is an opportunity to increase cooperation in the energy field without reaching that extreme level of dependence of China on Russian supplies, why not to extend the cooperation, right? While trying to avoid this extreme dependence, because we don't need that, right? Extreme dependence is never good in any field, any sphere, right? But if there is a potential to save growth, then let's do it, and it will be done. By the way, it will be done, definitely. And at some point, maybe European elites will be forced to acknowledge that, well, they lost with Russia, right? They tried to destroy Russia, they lost it, and maybe they will try to rebuild relationships with Russia, and maybe they will ask Russia to cooperate again in economical fields, including in energy fields. And you know what? At that point, Russia might be in a situation when basically all Russian economy is diversified, and reoriented on global south, right, or rest of the world. And even if Moscow would like to cooperate with Europe, even if Moscow would like to, help European countries a bit, send some gas or something, there might be nothing left, by the way, to send, right? Because contracts in energy fields are signed, especially when it comes to gas, by the way, are signed in long terms, right? So Russia simply might have contracts in place that all Russian extra gas that is exported is being already purchased, and European countries might not be even in a position to buy Russian gas, even if they want to. Anyways, one more news, dear friends, and I will end news segment on that. TASS News Agency is reporting that Bitcoin might reach $135,000 by end of the summer, according to experts. And Binance platform data shows that Bitcoin gained 7% to all-time high, which is $118,869 earlier yesterday, by the way. So yesterday, Bitcoin reached its highest point, which was 118,869, and before end of summer, this number might be 135,000. I'm not good with crypto. I don't really know much about it. Just some very little stuff, right? Some basics. But whoever, if you are good with crypto, if you have good understanding how all this crypto market is working, cryptocurrency market, then maybe it's worth to invest in Bitcoin. God knows, man. If it's gonna continue to increase in price and reach 135,000, but I don't know about it much, man. I was quite sure. Veterans of our community probably remember that since I started, by the way, making these videos 3 years ago, I was saying in investment, if I had some savings, I would invest in gold, right? Now, unfortunately, I did not have savings then. I don't have savings now, so therefore I cannot invest in nothing. But if I had, and if I invest 3 years ago in gold, by the way, how much profits would I have? I will not just save the savings itself in a secure way, but I will actually make quite a decent profits, because gold is breaking records, by the way, almost on weekly basis. And currently, gold price for ounce is $3,200 plus, I believe. Huge number, and will continue to grow, by the way. Will continue to grow. Anyways, dear friends, let's end news segment on that term. extremely hot nowadays in Moscow. By the way, some heat wave, which might last for another couple of days, and then what usually happens, heat wave is changed with the rains, right? So I guess maybe today, maybe tomorrow or day after, but some significant rainfall will visit Moscow too. And well, was there any super chat? Thank you very much, Blorp, for your super chat. Leaders of the West are dropping their ball again. Freaking clowns. Blorp's comment, by the way, on Rumble. Thank you, Blorp, for your $5 donation and super chat. I appreciate your support. And was there any super chat? What's in your header? Thank you very much for premium subscription. Grateful for your support. Thank you. And just a sec, dear friends. Anya, my wife, is helping me as always. And there was Robert. Thank you very much for your $65 donation on PayPal. Thank you for this generous donation. Truly grateful. And dear friends, whenever there is donation on PayPal, I'm always just saying first name. If I have permission to, in a comment, to use their full name, then I will. But otherwise, I'm gonna say only the first name. And comment from Robert is, keep up the good work, Levan. Thank you very much, Robert, for your generous support. I appreciate. Truly grateful. Thank you. And dear friends, let's go. Let's have a chat, isn't it? Like 15-20 minutes. Let's exchange opinions on some stuff. I'm happy that there is many comments, and members of our community are discussing in real time. Let's continue, dear friends. We have a question from Nidish Kumar. Levan, is it true that MiG production facility got hit? If yes, what is further course of action? I don't know, dear friends. I cannot confirm because I didn't see a report in official media outlets. When it comes to rumors, I mean, all sorts of rumors are circulating, isn't it? On internet, so I just don't know. But even if a facility was targeted, by the way, these plants that planes are built, it's massive plants, isn't it? And to take down such a massive enterprises, you need not just one drone, not just 100 drones, maybe even 1,000 drones will not do the job, right? Because of the scale, right? And we are talking about, in many cases, kilometers, by the way. Facilities are, on kilometers and kilometers, right? So therefore, I don't know if there was an attack on mixed facility. And then whenever there is enterprises, by the way, there are different facilities, right? If there was even attack, which facility was damaged, or how important, and what kind of consequences are hard to tell, but I don't think drone attacks can halt significantly production of the weapon systems in Russia. It's it's not happening. Drone attacks might halt production for a couple of hours, maybe for a day or two in some cases. That's about it. Yes, when oil refineries were targeted due to fire, that was a bigger scale damage, of course, due to fires, but that's oil refinery. But when it comes to military facilities, companies in military industrial complex, maximum you can do is to hold production for a couple of hours with drone striker, maybe day or two, and that's it. But when it comes to MiG, dear friends, I don't even know if MiG is producing any planes at this point. That's also, I mean, topic to discuss, because latest variation of MiG-29s is MiG-35, isn't it? And Russia was trying to find a buyer for this plane. Russian Air Force, I believe, did purchase like a couple of dozens, but I mean, MiG needs some breakthrough. MiG definitely needs some breakthrough to be done. Otherwise, it's failing competition with Sukhoi, with the SU planes, Sukhoi Constructor Bureau, as we used to call it during the Soviet era, Konstruktorskaya Bureau. So thank you for your question, Nidish, but I cannot confirm this information. But even if one drone did manage to reach, one or two drones, by the way, or three, managed to bypass all the air defense systems and hit one of the facilities of military industrial complex where MiG supposed to be, produced. I don't think damage would be so severe that it will hold production for more than a day or two. And I'm not sure MiG is even produced, by the way. I mean, it is sad. It is sad to say. I'm a big fan of MiG Constructor Bureau, by the way. They had the legendary planes, isn't it? Legendary planes. During the Great Patriotic War, MiG-3, MiG-5, I believe. MiGs were already building planes during the Great Patriotic War. Yaka was maybe more successful, and Il-2 attack plane was also very famous worldwide, but MiG was also in the game at that time, right? Then we had MiG-15, by the way, legendary plane, MiG-17 also, huge jump from MiG-15. Some may argue MiG-21, legendary plane. MiG-23 may not was greatest plane for its time, but compared to competitors from the West, it was a good plane, by the way. MiG-23 was quite a capable plane in good hands, right? With unique wing sweeper engineering decisions, right? And based on MiG-23 airframe, then MiG-27 bomber was created, frontline bomber. And this concept, by the way, of sweeping wings was adopted into Su-24 later on, right? Also, MiG-29. MiG-29 is, of course, a legend, by the way. And I really want to see some breakthrough from MiG, because they deserve it, by the way. They deserve. This is legendary Constructor Bureau, and should have, and definitely deserves breakthrough. Let's continue, and we have Nathan Dunning's question. Levan, have you heard Kyiv regime accuse Russia of targeting maternity ward, and Trump make threats to do something in retaliation? It was Western media this morning. I have seen video, by the way, when journalist was asking Trump, that was, I believe, that some maternity hospital or center was allegedly targeted. Of course, this is not true, by the way. In no circumstances, it's absolutely impossible. If you would know how Russian military is operating, you would have no doubts that in no circumstances, Russian armed forces will launch intentionally weapons in direction of civilians. Many Russian soldiers, by the way, and officers lost their lives while exercising restraint in attempt to avoid casualties among civilians, and therefore worsening their own positions on line of contact, while Kyiv regime was using civilians, right? Quite often. And there is videos of that, isn't it? Especially in the beginning of the special military operation, right? And I'm not going to believe even for a second, dear friends, that Russia intentionally targets any civilian, truly civilian, by the way, facilities. Not possible. If civilian facilities, by the way, are transformed into a military facility, that's a whole different story. Then it is becoming a legit target. If they are military infrastructure in a civilian building, formally civilian building, then that building is becoming legit target, and it cannot be counted as a attack on civilian target. That's how it is. And when it comes to Trump's threats, well, I mean, as I said during the live stream, unfortunately, I am not really optimistic in terms of the escalation between Washington and Moscow. I want to see the escalation, but I just have no enough indicators to be optimistic on that in that regard. And so let's say what Trump will say on Monday. He might announce introduction of that bill that Lindsey Graham and Blumenthal and some others created in the Senate, anti-Russian bill that is more anti-US actually than anti-Russian, because it targets Russian trade partners with 500% tariffs, and among Russian trade partners are China and India, by the way, that US is heavily dependent on, right, when it comes to imports. So is Russophobia or Russia hate is on such a scale nowadays in US that they're gonna harm their own tens of millions of their own citizens while adopting this law and imposing 500% tariffs on China and India and other Russian trade partners? I don't know, but they might go ahead and do this. So Trump probably will talk about that bill. He might announce the transfer of military aid package for the Kyiv regime, new one that will be authorized by Trump's administration, not previous administration. But I mean, what they're gonna do, really? What else, right? They are already conducting terrorist attacks on Russian soil, right? US obviously was engaged in that attack on nuclear triad of Russia together with UK. So they are engaged in such provocative actions, right? So if something happens in coming days in Russia, it would not surprise nobody, right? It might escalate big time situation, but no one would be surprised because US and UK already demonstrated that they are willing to escalate even towards the nuclear level because they targeted Russian nuclear triad, right? So Trump's threats, I mean, we are expecting anything, so therefore nothing will surprise us, really. And we are, we are winning, by the way, I don't want to make some strong statements, but we are winning. Collective West, these 40 plus countries, they've been defeated. They lost. They sacrificed millions of residents of Ukraine. They send their weapons and money for hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars. And they lost it anyways, right? And no matter how long they will try to prolong this conflict, it will fundamentally change nothing. It's a matter of formalization of Russian victory at this point. And at one point, we will be there. Dear friends, capital Q will help to notice the question. I'm scrolling faster in... dear friends, yesterday I saw a comment from Don Zugar that Svetlana Vladimirovna unfortunately had some hand injury or something. So I wish her quick recovery, if that is true. because I noticed she was active in the chat, and last several days I see she's not here. So if she injured her hand, quick recovery to her. Thank you all, dear friends, for attention. Of course. Question: how do Russian people feel about the genocide in Gaza? People are outraged, by the way. People are outraged. The Russian position is very clear. Society and the Russian government are outraged with the actions of Israeli government and the Israeli regime, right? And this is very clear. This is very clear. Moscow was very clear on that in many occasions. On many occasions, unfortunately, Russia does not have leverage over Israel as Western countries do, because Israel is not dependent on Russian weapon supply. Israel is dependent on weapon supply from US mainly, and also from a number of European countries that can actually use this leverage to force Netanyahu's regime to stop these crimes against humanity that Israeli regime is committing. But unfortunately, neither Washington, neither London, Paris, Berlin, or others are using whatever leverage they have to influence the situation. Here and there, sometimes some statements being made, but when it comes to real actions, real politics, no changes there, unfortunately. But here in Russia, society is united, government is on the same page. Israeli regime is committing. I'm talking about majority, by the way. I don't even know a single person that even tries to approve or justify Israeli actions. I don't know a single person that I'm talking to in real life. I know several personalities, media personalities, that are justifying actions of Israel, and all of them are foreign agents. All of them that I know that are justifying Israeli actions are foreign agents, by the way, designated as foreign agents based on Russian law. So what's a surprise, isn't it? So foreign agents, they justify anything, by the way, that Israel does, anything, because they have some ties with Israel and with the US and with Western so-called elites, and that's why they are being designated as foreign agents. It's not just ties, but also how they are receiving fundings, right? And for what purposes? And it's, it's shocking, by the way. I mean, how can one justify what Israel done, man? How it's even possible, man? Humanly, I mean, it's not possible. It's not possible, man. You cannot justify extermination of tens of thousands of people, by the way, tens of thousands of children and women. It's anyone that justifies that, by the way, I will question morality of that person. It's unjustifiable. One atrocity cannot justify another, right? And obviously Hamas committed atrocities against civilians on October 7, and no one argues that, right? Even though Israeli armed forces also, due to this some order they had, they were actually opening fire on civilians too, right? But nevertheless, there are reports that can be trusted that a number of Hamas elements committed crimes against civilians, right? Hundreds of civilians were kidnapped then, and it's all crime. It's horrendous crime, right? Cannot be justified, and I will not justify for sure. If they were only targeting militaries, that's the combatants, okay. It's too bad that sides are fighting, but if you are targeting combatants intentionally, then only combatants intentionally, then that's a different story. But once you began targeting civilians intentionally, that's when you are crossing the line, right? But that atrocity that was committed by Hamas is not justifying that absolutely inhuman actions that Israel committed and continues to do, by the way, against Palestinians, right? And recently, one member of our community sent me a message that there is a new data that is circulating among experts that about 300,000 civilians might be killed as a result of Israeli actions, by the way. And I remind you that Lancet media, Lancet medical journal, well-respected journal in the world, estimated that about 200,000 people were killed as a result of actions of the Israeli regime. So now latest information is that this number has risen to 300,000. Although officially, Palestinian side is reporting about 50 up to 60,000 cases when civilians were killed there, and each case is investigated, and there is names, surname, all information there, right? But unfortunately, tens of thousands of people can be, under the rubble, right? Nidish Kumar is commenting, Levan, as I said, we aren't going to buy F-35. You seem they're skeptical. Yes, I was thinking that US will put so much pressure on New Delhi that eventually Indian side would agree to buy F-35. I would be disappointed in that, but nevertheless, I would understand that India has to balance its policies and stuff. But F-35 is just too bad, man. It's just not really good plane, man. Right? So therefore, Su-57, I think is much more versatile, and there can be used not just as a air-to-air fighter jet, but also for air-to-ground attacks, right? And therefore, India will benefit from Su-57 much more. And what is also important, India will gain knowledge to build these fifth-gen planes, right? Technology, practical knowledge of building the planes, and give it maybe 10, 15 years, and India will begin producing its own fifth-gen fighter jets, and it's going to be great. Good luck with that. Anything that benefits India, by the way, is good, because India is a strategical partner of Russia, and our countries are destined to be strategical partners, right? And hopefully, our politicians will always be on this page that we have to be strategical partners, friendly nations always. That's our destiny. Because just take a look at the map, by the way. We just have to. We just have to. Nothing to be said about our history of great friendship, right? And great cooperation. So, and while we mentioned some fighter jets, Hyperion is commenting Su-35 checkmate. Well, Su-35 checkmate is still as Su, isn't it? Sukhoi. Constructor Bureau, although there was reports that MiG and Sukhoi might cooperate in that plane, Su-75, but until now, by the way, we don't really receive much additional information about Su-75, isn't it? About the checkmate plane. So maybe it was just a demonstration, and maybe project is not really developing. There are rumors, by the way. There are rumors for many years now that MiG is Mikoyan Gurevich, by the way. Two surnames were used to create this MiG name, Mikoyan Gurevich. So MiG, according to rumors, is working on sixth generation fighter jet. Some say MiG is working on replacement for MiG-31 long-range interceptor. Some are designating it as a MiG-41. Some are using some other names. Maybe this is true. Maybe this is true. Maybe not. But MiG definitely deserves to have a breakthrough plane because since its creation, MiG was always coming up with legendary platforms, and right now seems like MiG is kind of forgotten, and I don't like that. But you know. And dear friends, let me scroll quickly. Anne, was there any super chat? Okay, so I will scroll through questions. Sorry, dear friends, if I miss your question, but it's already 1 hour and 40 minutes. We had a good conversation, isn't it? I hope you did find the news segment itself informative and useful. And one more question, dear friends. Grim44 is asking who is projected to be Mr. Putin's replacement after he resigns. Oh, that's a question on $1 million, by the way. I mean, we don't know. Will he resign? Or there will be some other ways of transfer of power? But he's not going to stay on the position of president forever, isn't it? So there are many rumors, by the way, who might replace him. And I don't really have a strong opinion on that because we might now come up with names, different names. And Putin might actually choose someone else to replace him. So I don't know. And I don't think anybody knows. Maybe even Putin don't yet has finalized his his decision who would replace him, because I mean it's a difficult job, by the way. Can you imagine how stressful and how difficult that job is, to be president of Russia, to be president of any country, by the way, especially countries are extremely complex and one of the leading countries in this world, like Russia is. I would not like such a job, man. It's you have to be very special. You have to have very special mindset, by the way, to cope with such a job and with such a responsibility. It's not for everybody, and I think one of the main tasks of current leader of Russian Federation is to, from his side of ruling party, let's say, right, to choose candidate that will, do the job perfectly well. Good job is not enough. Job has to be done on a great level. And who he will choose, I have no idea, dear friends. I just don't. So many names can be said, names that we probably would not even consider. For example, do you ever consider Russian Prime Minister Mishustin as a potential replacement? And he's doing quite a good job, by the way, isn't it? As a leader of government, he's doing quite a good job. So why would not he be one of the candidates, for example, that will, replace Putin? Maybe Putin considering him too. There is Medvedev, isn't it? He was a president once. Maybe he will become a president again. Possibility, clearly, isn't it? And he has experience, by the way. He knows what this job is, right? and many others, by the way. There is no point to speculate, really. We might come up with 10 names, by the way, and Putin might choose as his successor someone else. And dear friends, let's end this live stream on that. Thank you all for your attention. Thank you all for your attention, for your support. As I said in the beginning, dear friends, I have a surprise for you, good surprise. Let's see how day goes. And also, before I end this live stream, let me remind you that tomorrow we will have a fundraising stream. Hopefully, we will succeed in that. Once again, thank you very much. Have a wonderful Saturday, great weekend, and take care. Bye for now.